Okay. Have a drink.
No, I did. I'm good. I'm feeling all numb. Wiggly. Yeah. No, just my body.
My body keeps telling me no. Was that what you're singing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously.
Duh. Welcome to our channel. I'm Alana.
I'm Mandy.
And we are going to be doing the end of survey tag by Perpetual page turner. We're going to link it down below with all of the questions. We're going to be doing it a little bit out of order as well as skipping some questions. So if you want to see the whole thing down below, otherwise, here we go.
Book you were excited about and thought you were going to love more than you did. So for me, House of Leaves. I have wanted to read this book forever, since it probably came out, and the reviews are mixed on it, but I found enough good ones that I was hopeful. I just didn't love it. I was confused. I didn't understand much what was going on. It felt kind of blah most of the time. And I mean, it's a big book, so I don't know. I wanted more.
So I agree with that, but I also have The Hate You Give, which I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on. It kind of just fell flat. It wasn't bad. I've recommended it to people. I don't hate it. I don't have any, I'm going to keep it in my collection. Like, it's not anything bad. It just was so meh. The most overrated book of 2017 for me.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The most surprising, in a good or bad way, book that we read in 2017. For me, that was The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. We went into it just going, you know, we really like Archie, really like Sabrina, what they're doing with the reboot of the series, and this one really just wowed me for sure.
For me, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I think I just wasn't sure my feelings prior to reading it, and I loved it. I found the characters really fascinating. The story was hard because it's something that you can probably see in the future. So, yeah, I really loved this one. Book you pushed the most people to read, and they did. For me, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I found it funny, and I know that a lot of my friends like the same kind of books, so I recommended it to at least 3 people, and I think they all read it.
Mine would be Cinder, which is similar vibe to hers, young adult fantasy. This one's a little bit more sci-fi, whereas this is more classic fantasy. I think those types of books are really easy to recommend. They have a really good age range. They're good for young people because the text isn't hard and it's not necessarily sexual or drugs. Maybe not this one, but this one for sure. But it also has really adult kind of subplots and stories and challenges going on, so I think you really relate. So going off of hers, because of her recommendation for The Crown of Midnight, I found the best series to be her other series. I did love that one, but I'm still in the middle of this one, so I think I'm a little more invested in this right now. I'm halfway through the 4th book here, and this is The Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas.
Yes, Throne of Glass series.
Throne of Glass series.
For me, I started Paper Girls. It's a graphic novel by Brian K. Vaughan. Compared to Stranger Things with awesome 12-year-old girls that don't act like they're 12 years old. I've read all 3 of the trade paperbacks that are out, and it just gets better each time. The characters are so much fun.
Yeah.
The plot is... I'm still confused at what's going on, but in the best way. Best book from a genre you don't typically read and was out of your comfort zone. For me is nonfiction biographies. I tend not to go towards those unless it's usually a person that I'm interested in knowing more about, and I'm exactly this. Carrie Fisher's. I read this after she passed away, so I think that probably cemented it a little bit more for me, because I found and this could be for all biographies, I have no clue. I found though that she wrote exactly how she talks, and so I'm getting emotional talking about it, but reading it, you could almost hear her saying it, and so I loved that so much.
Mine's similar, same biography, nonfiction. We were more fiction readers, both of us. So mine is Alexander Hamilton's. This is the one by Ron Church. I don't know. Biographies in general add to something you already
I think
love.
you have to be interested either in the person, the movie that something's on, or something like that, you know, to want to know more about it, or the background.
The most action-packed, thrilling, or not put downable unputdownable book of the year. Both of us, we picked Dark Matter. The definition of like what I think a thriller should be.
Yeah.
You start getting into it, get those inklings of something's going on, and then shit hits the fan.
And it doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop.
No.
And so if you get to that point of the book, you can't stop reading from that point on.
Yeah.
You literally can't.
There was so many times reading it where I was just shocked at what happened, and so I think that's what kind of kept me going and not wanting to stop reading it, because I was just blown away every time. Book you read in 2017 that you are most likely to reread the next year. For me, Snot Girl. She's a social media person, and she's very quirky, she's very odd, it's very funny. It's by the creator Scott Pilgrim, if that helps. Yeah, I think I will reread this because I still don't know what happened at the end. And I think I'll want to know more, or maybe try to figure it out better before I read the next trade paperback. It's very colorful.
Yeah. And like
It's fun.
stylized like Scott Pilgrim, and I think that's why I was drawn to it without realizing it was. I'm the opposite of the picking things, not like don't judge a book by its cover. I pick books by their covers all the time.
I do as well.
Which leads me into my picks, because this one is one of the ones that I picked just for the cover and then was recommended 1,000 times. I have two. We've already talked about Handmaid's Tale, but for the same reasons she's talked about, I would definitely reread it. Really like life-changing, amazing, not what we anticipated, all of those things. Definitely probably one of my favorite books, so that's gonna get reread. But the other one is Carry On, which is like a fanfic of a character from another book. It's like this weird meta thing. But this is just an amazing book. It's a retelling kind of like a magical...
It's fanfic of
the
Harry
chosen
Potter.
one. Yeah, so it's Harry Potter, but in a different world. And it just was lovely. The world was lovely. The characters are lovely. We're gonna talk about this so many times, believe it. But this one I definitely would reread because it is for sure one of my favorite books. And it feels like I'm almost reading Harry Potter in one book with all these other characters that I love too. So instead of reading 7 books, I can read 1.
Yeah, exactly.
The favorite cover of a book that we read in 2017, like I just said, Carry On. This one I saw on a bookshelf. Thought it was amazing. Maddie was with me and she's like, I've told you about that book like 6 times. And I was like, well, I'm buying it. I'm a big fan of very stylized illustrations, comic books and things like Paper Girls and Snot Girl. Like those things I'm just drawn to a certain style, and this for sure fell into it.
For me, I picked The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. This is the cover. I like horror, so this drew me in. I think it's really simple, but just... I don't know, beautiful on its own. It adds to the art, I believe, in the inside, but I think just seeing this cover, I would stop and want to know more. Even the font. The font is just amazing.
Beautiful. Most memorable character. We're gonna get into books we've mentioned before. Mine is Offred from Handmaid's Tale. Yeah, Offred, I thought she was... The whole book is told from her perspective, except for the very kind of last chapter. So you really get to know her. I think you really appreciate her. I don't think I loved her. I don't think she's my favorite character in any book ever. I don't relate the most to her, but she was definitely the most, like, got in my head, and even the way she thinks, I found myself kind of thinking about things differently because of this book.
For me, not very deep as hers, but it would be Baz from Carry On. I found that he was just funny. I don't know, everything about him, the way they describe him, the way he talks, everything that Rainbow kind of used to describe and speak for him made him like jump from the pages. Like I knew exactly, like I'm looking for him on the streets now because I'm just like, I need to find someone that looks like this because I'm gonna make my own movie about them. Favorite new author you discovered in 2017 for me was Blake Crouch from Dark Matter. I just loved his writing. I don't think I read a lot of adult books, especially sci-fi, so I think it was just different and it kept me on my toes, so his writing just, I don't know, blew me away.
Mine was, and we have thousands of her books in this pile, but Sarah J. Maas. I never had heard of her. She recommended her, and I mean, I've bought every book I can of hers since. Just like that kind of perfect writing style, not too stylized, but you can distinctly tell it's her. The way she writes characters is just beautiful and very three-dimensional and just like good. I'm a fan. The most beautifully written book that I read in 2017 for me was Turtles All the Way Down, and I have 2 copies because I have a signed copy, which is my prized possession. Basically, this book is John Green. It's his newest one. It's been a while since he wrote any. He's definitely one of my favorite authors. I love the way he writes. Anytime I read one of his books, I just think they're beautifully written. Whether or not I love the book is different, but I just love his writing.
I picked Swear on This Life by Renee Carlino. It's a love story, so I find I always kind of gravitate towards love stories as far as the writing. It's about this girl who finds out a boy from her childhood wrote basically their love story. And so she kind of tries to track him down and figure it out and has all these questions. So it's just, yeah, I mean, love is beautiful. Most thought-provoking, life-changing book of 2017. For me, Turtles All the Way Down by John Green falls more into the thought-provoking for me. Just kind of with what the subject matter is, I found it really fascinating. Something I think more people need to maybe understand on the level that it's explained. I don't always love his writing as much as Alana might, and I didn't necessarily love this book, but I think the subject matter is something that's important, and it really stuck with me. Yeah. I'll add this to the pile of John Green.
Pile of just Turtles All the Way Down, though, not all of them. 3 of them. Okay. Mine was Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood. We've talked about this before. Definitely the book that made me think the most. And I consider anything that changes the way that I think life-changing because I can go through life differently. And for me, I think that this was one of them where I definitely see the world differently. I see how life events and social and political events are going on in the world. And maybe I would have thought of them before, but this has changed the way that I think about them, so I really appreciate this book for that. Anytime a book can do that, it becomes one of my favorite books, for sure. Book that you can't believe that you waited until 2017 to finally read. Again, Handmaid's Tale. It's been out since, like, 86, 80s, for sure. And I think that it's relevant in any age, but especially now. So it didn't feel like I waited too long, but I also can't believe that I've spent so much of my life not having read this, because it is one of my favorite books now.
Yeah. It's nice the writing didn't feel like it was written in the 80s.
Not dated at all.
No.
Yeah, held up really well.
For me, Cinder, recommended to me by Alana. I mean, I've heard about it from everyone on BookTube, but yeah, I actually owned this book for at least 2 or 3 years, and I think it was just knowing. I knew I'd love it, and so I wanted to wait till I got the other ones so I could just binge them all, which I kind of have started doing. I'm on book 3 now, but that's primarily why I waited so long. But I'm glad now to have finally read it. If you don't want to know, skip the next couple
OTP
minutes.
of the year is the next question, so skip this if you haven't read any books that we've previously mentioned. They're both things that we've previously mentioned in this video, so skip to this timestamp if you don't want spoilers. Okay, so mine was Snow and Baz, like the Simon Snow and Baz something, Basil, I don't know.
It's just Baz.
He's a very British long name. They are, I mean, like, I'm getting warm. They are just lovely, and they complement each other perfectly, and I just love it. I
think how it happened. That for me was just like, I knew it was going to happen because of BookTube, but when it happened, I still just felt
like screaming. Screaming. I love it so much.
And we want more. For me, shocker, Feyre and Rysand, specifically from this book, as you probably all agree, I don't even know where to start with them. I think the fact that it wasn't like this insta-love, too, from the first book, like their relationship was more complicated. It got a little different in the third book. This one's my favorite of the series, but I love them. Especially the ending.
I love love.
It was like cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I just loved it.
Yeah. I will go
Okay,
down with this ship.
I mean,
Oh, my mama.
favorite non-romantic relationship of the year is the Song Sisters from the To All the Boys I've Loved Before book series. This is the newest book. I just love their relationship. It's real sisters, exactly how they would act, and they were funny and entertaining and just lovely to each other.
Mine is Nimona, which is another graphic novel. The relationship between Nimona and Lord Blackheart is the main driver of the book. That's the whole kind of idea. It's about, she's a shapeshifter, which is not a spoiler, it's like within the first page. And he's like an evil villain, kind of in Camelot times, and just their relationship of like an assistant to a supervillain, and it gets really complex and deep, and that's the whole point of this book, and I thought it was lovely. It's platonic love to me is one of my favorite things, especially like intense, passionate, but non-romantic love. I just think it's an amazing thing when you can write it well, and I think that this did it really well. Book that made you cry, or nearly cry, we're criers, so cry, in 2017. I reread Time Traveler's Wife. Sure most of you already have read it or seen the movie or know about it, but about time traveling and love and the complexity of what it means for someone's relationship, like the whole time.
Yeah.
Like you cry because you're happy, you cry because you're sad, you cry because you don't
think you
understand.
cry more the second time around too,
Yeah.
because
Oh.
you know what's
Yeah,
coming.
for sure.
So
as a reread, just
bawling.
gross, ugly, snot crying. Yeah.
For me, it was Wish You Were Here by Renee Carlino. It's a love story. There's literally not much I can say that does not spoil something in this book. That happens pretty quick. So let's just say I cried like most of the time reading this book, but in the best way. Happy tears, sad tears, all the tears. Definitely recommend it. If you want to cry. Hidden Gem of the Year is, for me, A Hot Glue Gun Mess. This is by Mr. Kate. She's a YouTuber. She does DIY projects. So this is kind of like a little bit of a biography, but then she also has DIY projects in between, not necessarily related. So it'll be like, here's a story about my life and something that happened to me. And then in the same chapter, it's like, but also here, you can make this awesome headboard with seashells and beautiful things. So I just thought it was clever and cute. And I don't know if you watch her videos, I highly recommend those. She's super quirky, funny, eclectic, everything wonderful. So I just loved, again, the way it's written, it sounds just like her. So I really enjoyed that.
I don't have one because I read a lot of mainstream things. The closest one that I would get would be Snot Girl. It's still pretty mainstream, but it was one of the ones I just picked up. I haven't heard many people talking about it, and I thought it was super interesting. Did we already talk about it?
I have it here.
Yeah.
If you don't have yours reachable.
No, because it's trash. The book that made you the most mad, it does say doesn't necessarily mean you don't like it, but we don't like these. Mine is Armada, which I literally keep calling Armageddon because I don't remember what it's called because I thought it was pretty much trash. We did this in book club, and definitely I probably took over and just raged about how bad it was. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't like the worst thing in the world, but it was so bad for what it could have been. And you could so clearly tell that the author wants to be this character and wrote himself into a book in a stylized way that was based in trying to cash in on the success of a previous book. So it was very pandering. It was very written for a particular audience and written a certain way to try to appeal to people, and I hate that. I just don't write something because you love it or because it makes sense to you. This story was not a good plot. It just wasn't interesting. No. And it wasn't original. And everything that made his first book really quirky and fun, when he did the exact same stuff in this one, it just fell flat, and I found, it was just like reaching. Like he was trying to get that. And like feels bad for feminists. There's no three-dimensional female characters. And even the male characters, besides the main character who barely has personality traits, they just decide things that he is, and then half of the time forget about it later on, or decide things partway through that he's really good at these things. The only thing that's consistent with any character throughout the entire book is that the main character's good at video games, and to me that's not compelling. So the characters aren't engaging, the plot's not engaging. We read it and I was just mad about it. I was just angry that it could have been something and it was nowhere close to it.
Yeah. I agree about that one.
Trash.
For me, this The Infinite Sea by Rick Yancey. So I can't go into the details because this is book 2, but I loved the first one, The Fifth Wave. I just found it super fascinating, really interesting. I like alien stories, and it's like end of the world aliens. But so I did put off reading this one because I was nervous, and when I read it, I was so bad. How many pages? Too many pages. 300 pages of filler, of nothing. There's no plot, there's no story, there's no character development. Nothing happens. Nothing that was subsequential. Like, to the point, I will not read the third book. I want to live in the world where there was only the first book. Even though it ends in a cliffhanger and the movie was horrible, my world, only the Fifth Wave exists. Do not read these. Please. Horrible. I want to cry right now. A book that made me cry this year. This one.
We have a lot of feelings, and we hate these books.
Best book of 2017 for me is Carry On. Obviously, best book I read in 2017 because it did not come out this year. I think we talked enough about it. Everything about it. There's nothing I don't like about it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to read it 20 million times. I want more.
Mine is same thing. Talked about it a bunch. Handmaid's Tale. Again, it didn't come out in 2017, but it is the one I read in 2017 that I've said has changed me. Beautiful writing, beautiful characters, thought-provoking, all of these things. Because of it, it definitely is one of my favorites.
Okay, I'll try to get up.
Thank you so much for watching our first video on this channel of our book reviews, good and bad, for 2017 based off of the survey. We are going to be doing the looking ahead in a separate video talking about our books for 2018 as well as our plans for this channel. We're going to be talking about board games, movies, books, TV shows, things like that. Mostly books, but make sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you want to see what we're going to be talking about from now on.
Let us know in the comments too the type of videos you'd like to see, whether it's hauls or reviews, any kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. Cool.
Bye.
Bye. %, alcohol.
Yeah, and that is fine by me.
Just kidding. Don't drink.
No one's gonna see that.
You don't know what I'm gonna edit. You don't know what I'm gonna put in here.
In the extras.
Yeah, like bloopers.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Where we think we're funny and no one else does. Those things. Okay.
This whole video.
Oh.